Hello and welcome to the special online Carte Blanche COVID-19 Q&A. I am Masa Gegana. Remember to click on the subscribe button so you don't miss any of our upcoming episodes. Now today, I'm pretty excited about this topic. We're going to focus on small business relief. The government, banks, local donors have introduced a number of measures to assist small, medium, and micro-sized enterprises, which may offer some vital support. But what is the process like for SMMEs?
Hi, Ryan from Need Bakery. Our cafes have had to close over this lockdown and our bakery has reduced to about 10% of capacity. The only way we've been able to adapt is by introducing a few online deliveries. To date, we've had absolutely no assistance or heard back from any government relief schemes, and the TERS has paid out about less than 20% of our staffing, but with no breakdown or explanation how they got to that amount, and the support line cannot assist us. So for cafes like mine, I don't know how we're going to get through this.
Good day everyone, it's Oscar here from L&M Furniture Removals. We are also not operational as yet. We've looked at providing our services to the medical sector and the food sector. That's still early stages to tell if we'll be successful, and also we'll try to look at the relief funds that have been made available. Nothing has come forth as thus far, but we do hope for the best.
My name is Nomsa Mazibuko from Visit Vakasha Guest Lodge in Emalahleni. About this COVID-19 and the lockdown, it has really hit my SMMEs very hard because one, it came unexpectedly. We were given few days to close shop. So most SMMEs are very worried. As much as the government has tried to say there's a relief fund, many people have applied for it. We haven't yet received any confirmation, and a lot of them also are complaining that they've been declined because of the requirements, which are almost like a red tape to SMMEs and especially to those emerging entrepreneurs. So I really don't know how are we going to be able to help those that are unable to access the fund. And the UIF applications, they are also one thing. I'd like to congratulate or appreciate actually the Department of Labor, because today we are one of those who received confirmation letters that they have processed our application, which means maybe, and we hope so, our employees will be paid by the Department of Labor, which is very good. We commend them for that.
Hi, my name's Kerry. I run an engineering company with my husband Jeff. We have been affected by the coronavirus since January as we import tooling from China. That just means that now at lockdown we had no cash reserves, cash flow. A lot of our customers didn't pay, so no cash to pay our staff. UIF and TERS funding has then become a lifeline for us. Initially it was incredibly frustrating. They kept changing forms, we didn't understand their instructions, there was no feedback from them, you couldn't get hold of anybody. I heard about the online portal via social media that UIF had launched. What a difference. We applied on Tuesday evening, loaded everything manually. By Friday morning we had received funding already for our staff.
Here with us to dig deeper into these issues is Phumlani Nkontwana, who's the founder and CEO of Water Africa. He's also a development economist and academic. Now, Phumlani, a one-size-fits-all approach may not work for everyone. What are some of the obstacles that you've seen that SMMEs are facing on the ground?
Yeah, just to start off, I have to start by saying the word SME is so loaded. It's like development, and sometimes it means nothing or it means a million things to a million people. So when you start understanding that SME actually has three categories. One, there's businesses that are not formalized, which make up a huge percentage of SMEs, and then you have a small number that return between 2 to 25 million, and you have this missing middle, which is the businesses that are not formal but making anything from survivalist incomes right up to 2 million rands. And the problem is the formal schemes at the moment governments that are providing relief are very much targeted at the higher end of SMEs. So because of that, they're very formalized, and they miss a number of SMEs. So there is recent data that has just come out that over 80% of SMEs don't know where to get the help, and they will not survive working at home. And so there's a number of issues around income lost. They cannot survive, and they are not built or sophisticated enough to work from home.
So Phumlani, are you saying that, we're going to see more of our really smaller entrepreneurs and businesses crumbling under this? Because this relief is essentially going to assist the smaller businesses, but that are more formalized. So Ugogo Dlamini, that's selling acha, and your informal traders and your smaller businesses that are not bringing as much revenue will suffer.
Absolutely. In fact, the precise data is that 95% can't afford to pay employees, 50% do not think their businesses will survive, 93% do not have any other income sources.
Sure. And we've also heard from the Labour Minister, Tula Simlesu, who's saying that even the UIF will not be able to deliver it at that scale. So even if you do qualify to get your UIF as an employee of one of an SMME, you won't be able to survive off of it.
Precisely. Just to give you the 1 billion rands by the Ruperts is closed as we speak. It was closed, I think, within a week or two because it had 2.8 billion rands request, and it's just 1 billion. So that is not even in the picture as we speak. And the UIF, I'm going to read you from the UIF scheme. One of the requirements is you need evidence and / payroll as proof of last 3 months of your employees. The problem is that's exactly the criteria that defines a formal business, that they have a bank account, they have pay slips, and they're formalized. And the reality is that a lot of SMEs are actually not formalized. And when we talk about entrepreneurship, not just in South Africa, but across Africa. In fact, in Africa, over 95% of what we call business is actually just a small business that employs between 1 to 20 people. Generally, what is classified as an SME in South Africa is a business that employs 1 to 50 people, making between 2 million to 25 million, which you can understand is quite sizable, and those businesses are able to bank quite a bit of money. So they may or may not have this need. So, and even if a small business making 2 million rands really can apply and is as formal as others, they will not compete with a full-time accountant in an established SME, and they will not put these proposals quicker, and they will not put the documentation as quickly as the other established SMEs. So you have a systemic barrier, which is a concern.
So you've got the SMEs who are getting less than 2 million, and the ones who are also getting 2 to 25 million, who also have their concerns. If you could give us a few more examples of some of the concerns in terms of applying for these funds. As you've mentioned, the Rupert Fund has already been depleted. So what are the other concerns besides the fact that the money is running out?
Okay, the biggest one, which is if you work with small businesses, everybody will tell you the biggest issue with small businesses, which is why I always say to people, it's not that people say there's a finance issue. It's not a finance issue. It's the fact that the formal system of the financial system is not built for them. So it's the key word is compliance. So just of the COVID-19 disaster UIF plan, you could say it's probably moderate, accessible to employees. The COVID-19 tiers, probably moderate. But when you start talking about the Oppenheimer, the South African Futures Fund, it's very formalized. You need you need to prove a number of documentation that, one of the criteria in the SAFTA one, the South African Futures Fund by Oppenheimer, is that they give you up to 25,000 microloans. And the criteria is that by, I think, February this year, your business must have been in a sustainable position. In other words, you were doing well. And then the NEF one is a loan which is really difficult to access for any businesses, and CEDA and CIFA also has that. And then we have what is called Spaza Shop Support Scheme, which is a cash. It's very small, and it's not that difficult to access, but it's not going to hit any dent. The big funds that could make a difference to SMEs are going to be monopolized by established SMEs.
Sure. So, Phumlani, what should small businesses be doing now to stay afloat, apart from cutting expenses? What would you advise?
The first thing I always say is, as a small business, have a very comprehensive digital strategy. I've been using Zoom for 5 years, and people are just getting into it, and small businesses are suddenly realizing that, oh my gosh, we must now digitize. And the digital strategy doesn't mean Facebook. It doesn't mean Twitter. It doesn't mean Instagram. People think if they have those accounts, or even LinkedIn, suddenly they have a digital strategy. If you don't have an ability, you don't have a Zoom account, your services can only be accessed in if you like, primitive ways of face-to-face. It's a problem. So small businesses must start thinking about, first of all, how do they repurpose what they have? How do they think of adjacent markets, what we call adjacent markets? Yes, maybe their businesses are shutting down, but how do they augment their experiences and look at the competencies they have and think about exploiting adjacent markets? And again, now more than ever, they must have a digital strategy rooted at the center of their solution. So the key message is, small businesses must stop thinking product. There's an obsession around product development, but they must start thinking about access and distribution. And distribution meaning, how do people consume my services or products online?
I find it quite interesting when you're talking about meeting face to face and referring to it as primitive. We really do need to be adapting if we need to be thinking of meeting in person as primitive now. Now, our SMMEs are our biggest job creators. Now, times of crisis are often catalysts for innovation and entrepreneurship, as you're mentioning, Phumlani. Do South African companies have the agility to be able to adapt to the necessary changes to survive? And beside the digital approach that you've mentioned, do you already see that they are moving in that direction in the few weeks that we've had?
I don't think so. In fact, the biggest culprits are corporates. They are as primitive as the mom-and-pop businesses on the streets. And that's the reality. Right now, a lot of these companies are almost frowning upon employees at home and frowning upon government, just because they're not built for a digital future. So I would say that, first of all, South African businesses have not experienced something as big as this. We can think of 2008 financial crisis, and I can tell you now, South African corporate has not recovered from the 2008 financial crisis. We can think of how many banks retrenched, how many mining companies retrenched and never employed those people. So what we know as corporates is basically shrinking. So we have a corporate sector that is shrinking. And as you say, 99% of net new jobs are now coming from small businesses. So I think that this is a transition that if you speak to a large corporate, they'll tell, we're still going to think about a digital strategy. But now this is forcing everybody. So I don't think that both corporates and SMEs, maybe arguably SMEs, are in a better position because they can adapt quicker. But corporates are like these oil tanks. that are taking forever to change. And that's the opportunity for small businesses. So I don't think that South Africa is ready or was ever ready for something as systemic and as industry changing as this is. Because what will happen when the economy opens up, more and more new businesses will adapt and start thinking of offering solutions differently. So corporate, as we know it, will have to compete even more. And we already know corporatism is shrinking.
To the SMMEs, as times are like this, obviously it's tough times, but just remember that they don't last. What you can do now that you are doing nothing, actually empower yourself. Let's soldier on. So let us just be innovative for our business sake and do business differently and see how can we be able to take it from here.
Phumlani, just my final question to you. Is there a silver lining? Are we on a downward spiral here? Will our economy be able to do enough to save us?
That's a very difficult question because to understand that, you need to understand our position as it is right now. And right now we are in a recession, and we have been for a year or so. Our GDP has been just slowly declining. It started with 2%, it became 1.7, and last year 0.9 or so percent, and this year we're projected also at 1% or 1.2%. So what some other economists are suggesting is that COVID-19 will obviously put the economy online for about a quarter of our trading year. So if you put our economy online, you have two problems. One is the suppliers and businesses are not geared for selling online, as I've argued. And then consumers, the demand side, we still see shopping as therapeutic in South Africa. And so people still like to go park, as cumbersome as it is, go to malls and park. I mean, Pick n Pay has had online shopping and many other businesses for years. But people, if you ask what is their online sales, they are very little. And so the point here is this will affect between 600 to 800 billion rands, let alone of the 500 billion that the president was announcing, only 150 is being repurposed from our current budget. So 350 or so is being borrowed. So you have this classic sort of recession that is now precipitated by another mega once-off trend or so, and that's catastrophic. So what we need to do is to rebuild, tighten our belt even more. We should have tightened our belt already, but now people need to start buying less, taking less credits, start thinking to spend their money very wisely, even startups. And so you're going to see a very contrarian economy, both from small businesses and large businesses. Everybody's going to take it slow. If they're not retrenching, they're not going to be employing people. So we do have a massive problem, especially if we're going to have our GDP trading online for about a quarter of the year. And that is estimated to affect us between 600 to 800 billion rands. Now, in South African terms, that is a lot of money, and we are not even doing very well currently.
Yeah. Sure, Phumlani, that's a lot to think about. So we've heard about what small businesses need to do, but what about the rest of us, you and I? And who better than a wealth coach to bring us some solid strategy that we definitely need right now? Samke Mhlongo, welcome to our Q&A. Could you please share some insights with us? As individuals and families, what do we need to be focusing on right now as far as our finances are concerned?
Thank you so much, Masa. I think a lot of people, as you know, especially South Africans, we have a very poor savings culture, and a number of people don't have the classical 6 months of your salary saved in their bank accounts, and so they are relying on the payment reliefs that we've seen being made available by the banks in terms of the 3-month payment reliefs. They're also looking at options such as claiming from their credit insurance, which unfortunately is reserved for people that are employed full-time in the formal sector. So if you're a self-employed individual or you are employed in the informal sector, then you are unlikely to have credit insurance on any debt that you've taken out. We've also seen people claim from their income protection policies, but again, the conditions there are that your ability to generate an income needs to have been impacted as a result of you being COVID-19 positive in terms of the infection, as opposed to you not being able to generate an income because of the lockdown.
Those are the T's and C's.
Yes, those are some of the T's and C's that apply in terms of the reliefs that are available. But you'll see that most of the interventions have been focused on debt relief, and that's as a result of people not having adequate savings. We've seen the South African repo rate dropped by 200 basis points over a period of about a month, and that's actually bad for savers. We've spoken more around the debt relief, but we haven't actually spoken about what this means for savers and pensioners, because a lower interest rate means that they are earning less in their monies, and so you're going to see a strain from that side as well for individuals.
Samke, let's chat a bit about some of these options that we have as individuals. Now, we've heard about the payment relief that you mentioned. Let's talk a little bit about that. If I decide I'm going to take a payment relief and then I end up jobless, then what?
So the 3-month payment relief is basically, as an explanation, a rolling up of the capital, interest and fees on a debt that you would have been paying in your installments. So you will have to repay it at some stage, and you're just either going to have to extend the term of your loan at the end of the 3-month period, or then your installment will be higher to cater for the 3 months that you haven't been paying an installment. If your financial position changes during that 3 months, or even subsequent to those 3 months where you lose your job, then unfortunately you will have to be placed on the default processes of the bank and may face repossession of your assets as well. So the minute that you lose your income, then the bank has a responsibility, remember, to its depositors, and as part of Reserve Bank regulations as well, that any debt that is at risk of default be classified as such.
Samke, what advice would you give to someone who is looking at some of these options, or even taking out their pension fund at this point? Is that something you would advise?
No one really wants to advise anyone to cash out from their pension, especially because early withdrawal does have that high tax element, especially if you are withdrawing and you're not switching jobs. There are a lot of limitations on your ability to draw on your pension fund. But similarly, we would advise that you don't take out additional debt at this stage. I would advise that you keep cash, because cash is king. And if you do have the option of that relief, you definitely do take it up, because guess what? At a future point in time when your finances and your cash flow has recovered, either by way of a promotion, if you're lucky to get a promotion, a salary increase, if you're lucky to get a salary increase, or just general improvement in the levels of cash flows, then you're actually able to go back to your financial services provider or your bank to say, listen, what is the total I would have repaid on this loan? And it's usually for long-term loans, so your home loan and your vehicle finance. What is the total I would have repaid had I not taken out this payment holiday? And what is the total I'm set to repay now, so that you can show me what do I need to increase my installment by to ensure that the total repayable is no higher than had I stuck to the original plan. So there's ways to jig and work the system later on if you do take out some of these relief measures. Of course, you want to check if you have credit insurance, and you can also negotiate if you are self-employed. I'm self-employed and have negotiated with my landlord, for instance, to say, listen, this is how much I can afford to pay you over the next 3-month period. We will then revise how we either add this amount that I've saved on, or rather not repaid, into the rental payments going forward, or we can then just extend the term of my lease period and add it there. So there are a number of negotiations you can make. And again, as Phumlani mentioned, a lot of these solutions rely on the fact that you would have been a good payer to begin with, before entering into the COVID-19 lockdowns, that your landlord pay your rental payments to your landlord, that your repayments on your debt would have been consistent, and you would have had a good credit score or profile with the people or the parties you're asking for that relief from. But in a nutshell, the solution or the tip would be to, as far as possible, preserve cash, keep because that buys you time and that buys you options. As we saw from the announcements from the president, we are not actually having the lockdown lifted, but rather entering into different interchangeable phases of the lifting of the lockdown. So we're not guaranteed to go from a linear level 5 to level 4 to level 3. We could very well go from level 5 to level 4, and if we see a rate in the increase of infections, go back to level 5. So no one is actually sure, number one, when we'll return to normal, and number two, what the new normal looks like. So cash will buy you time and buy you options in that regard.
Sure, that is so helpful. My final question to you, Samke, is this a time in our lives where we should even be thinking about building our wealth? Is it even possible? Do we even have the stamina to have that kind of ambition right now when the economy is just crumbling before us?
Oh, absolutely. Now is the time to be. There are so many opportunities. I am signing on new clients. I am writing up new invoices because, again, referring to Phumlani who just spoke, digital is where the new economy is. And if you can break down into these simple steps, one, my business offering or my skills offering to my organization, what exactly am I providing? What problem am I solving with the skills or the service that I'm offering as an entrepreneur or a salaried employee? Then number two, how do I pivot that solution onto a digital platform? Number three, is that platform an existing platform? So Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and your more professional ones like Zoom or Google Teams or Microsoft Teams, or do I need to build a digital platform that will effectively allow me to roll out the service offering that I have, which is actually a solution to a problem? And then number four, how much money do I have to contribute towards this new technological platform? Or do I need to build in this technological platform as a KPI now to say that we're working towards taking our solution digital? And then you start speaking to web developers, program managers. But the shift has to happen. We've definitely moved digital. Even on social media, you'll see people saying, I don't care what level the president announces, I'm staying indoors, I'm scared of going out. Even with the lockdown being lifted, behavior has changed such that people aren't going out as often. You've seen businesses in Japan saying that we haven't recovered. Restaurants are closing down because people are saying, guess what? I'm no longer practicing the same habits that I was before the lockdowns. I now want to cook at home. I now hang out with my family and friends on Zoom. I now work out online. So the whole world has been disrupted and normal as we know it is gone. And this opens up the opportunity for us to all pivot our offerings online, to take them digital. And guess what? Whether you are a large broadcaster, whether you are a Samke broadcasting from your home, the playing field is level. If you have a camera and you have internet access, the quality of your content and the quality of your solution is going to speak about how fast and how wide you build up your new platform, your new clients, and basically your ability to generate wealth.
Samke, you've given me an injection of hope. I am just feeling like there is some sort of silver lining. Before I let you go, any other tips that you would like to give our viewers?
I would say definitely see this as an opportunity to basically absorb this and accept this as the new normal. So a lot of people are saying to me, I can't wait to get back to. And I've actually adopted the philosophy that what would my business offering, what would my habits and my practices look like if this is the new world? I operate from home 24/7. So I've actually managed to start rolling out corporate workshops on Zoom. I've managed to start rolling out my financial tips as a daily broadcast on my Instagram platforms. And I'm now actually being paid by companies and big businesses to say, hang on a minute, can you come and consult and help us move our operations digital? So first mover advantage is a big opportunity right now. If you kind of look like you know what you're doing, trust me, big business is going to come to you to ask them to help them for tips and methods of how they can move their operations digitally. No one knows what's going on right now. So this is the best time to kind of explore, and if you've got a solution, to roll it out. If you look at the Zoom CEO, Eric Yuan, he became a billionaire overnight because of COVID-19. If you look at the American DJ D-Nice, he's now hosting digital parties for Michelle Obama and being paid for it. So there's lots of money to be made. There's lots of opportunities out there. But the critical question remains, what problem is your offering solving? And many of us actually have been in the business of making money and not in the business of solving problems. And COVID-19 has now exposed us and separated the sheep from the goats and the boys from the men.
That is quite fascinating. And I thank you so much, Samke, for that. And so much gratitude to Phumlani as well for your knowledge and your insights. Talk about putting your money where your mouth is. So a big thank you to you as our experts today for sharing so generously the knowledge that you have. Now we know where to bulk up financially and where to buffer up. Remember to subscribe to our channel, and we'll see you on the next COVID-19 session. From me, Masa Gekana. Stay safe, South Africa, and stay indoors.